Welcome back to IGN at Gamescom. Now, when it was first shown off at E3 earlier this year, the Avengers definitely made some waves. Here to talk about it right now, I'm joined by Crystal Dynamics head of studio Scot Amos and Tina Amini from IGN.
Hello.
Hello.
Big surprise, Avengers just out there playable, like you're letting the...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got 72 stations set up out there, so we've got just people rolling through every 20 minutes or so. It's awesome.
And Tina, you got a chance to play it, right?
Yeah, I played it yesterday, but I think the even bigger aspect to it was that you gave me a presentation, full-on explanation of what this game is and how it actually unfolds beyond the tutorial that I got to play.
That's right.
Do you want to explain a little bit about what the differences are, multiplayer, single player? What is this thing in a nutshell?
You got the whole deep dive, though, so that was a good another 20 minutes of presentation. How much time do we have? At the end of the day, for us, like everything that we've talked about, looking at Avengers, you're playing an original Avengers storyline, and that's the big deal for us, right? Having these characters, having a story that we get to tell uniquely with collaboration with Marvel, it's been a dream for us to say, what can we do to take these really beloved, iconic characters, like we did with Lara Croft back in the day, and reimagine them with a new way and a new story. And then everything we've done, as you've seen both in the demo, getting to represent who these characters are on this tutorial level, playing as Iron Man, playing as Thor, playing as Hulk, but this is just the beginning. For us, this is just one of what we call a hero mission, where you're playing specific heroes, the level itself tailored to those heroes, to try and get you on board, learning who they are in a very cinematic way, and then the world opens up. And you go from having hero missions like this to what we call Warzone missions, where you now have massive amount of content to do all around the globe, all kinds of different reasons. It's awesome.
Now this is very exciting. What I'm hearing here is, and this is one of the challenges of making a superhero team game, is that you're kind of making 5 games at once.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of the process of kind of balancing all that out and like figuring out how to devote the right amount of time to each character and then have that come together?
It's been delightful for us because Vince Napoli, who's our lead combat designer, had come from the God of War team, and so having Vince be able to show up, look at our heroes, and we were doing what we were doing, making Iron Man, making Cap, making Hulk, and then Vince showed up and was like, okay, give me the hardest one. So we gave him one like we hadn't really developed yet, said try this out, see what you guys can do. And then when he and his team, this player enemy traversal team that we have, the pet team, when they actually did what they did with Widow, we're like, holy shit, this is much better. Okay, redo these guys now. And so Vince just started taking each character and getting down to the core of who are they? What makes them cool? What is that attribute? Whether it's a hammer that maybe throws a lot like a Kratos axe and can come back to you, all the way to Iron Man being able to fly with repulsors and then other unlocks you have for his gear. That team has just nailed it as far as saying this is what these heroes, this playing that fantasy of being these heroes.
So those hero missions are supposed to be really catered to their abilities, their backstory, obviously. What can you tell us about the differences of those missions? Like, what does Black Widow's campaign look like compared to Iron Man, sparing the spoilers and a lot of those
Tina.
details?
Come on, that's terrible. But when you look at it, even from the Golden Gate Bridge, which again is a tutorial level, so it's just getting you on-ramped, getting into a nice area, you can figure out how these, just a taste, just a glimpse of how these characters play, what some of their powers are. Once you get more into the story, as you start unlocking the next hero mission, say, oh, now I have Black Widow, now you have to see where is she in her story arc. What happened since the events of A-Day? What has she been doing when she kind of returns to this kind of lone wolf spy kind of lifestyle? And now where is she at? What has she been doing? And then what are her abilities? So we want players to be able to take that journey, learn who these characters are, but actually get to even customize them beyond that. Because as you level up, you get skill points. You can actually unlock different skills. You can customize your Widow to play differently than my Widow. And then we have all the outfits that you got to see glimpses of so far that your Widow can look completely different than my Widow as well. So we want to have these your heroes your way.
We got a glimpse of the skill trees, and they're really robust. It does seem almost like classes within those hero types. So Thor can be, you described Thor can be a little bit more of an area of effect kind of damage, more long range, or you can turn him into more of a tank where he's got like much tougher strength in terms of his melee abilities. Can you tell us more about how those skill trees help you play dynamically in a way that you want to, and on the fly, mid-game change through them?
Well, we showed off some of the details. You get to play Iron Man actually in this particular demo, and you'll see him flying with those repulsors. But one of those things, the repulsors, we all know this, right? You hear the kind of high-pitched whine, and they come out and you blast it from your hand. We actually have skills in there that you can unlock. We can unlock an entire skill tree of lasers. And lasers have much different sets of weapons for both melee attacks and ranged attacks, and then you can unlock rockets. And now with rockets, you can play completely differently than you would have played with repulsors or with lasers, but you can actually switch to them on the fly. So anywhere in the game, as Iron Man, as you're playing, if you have those unlocked, you can then switch between rockets that you can lock onto a bunch of enemies, or lasers. You can do some really cool, classic kind of swinging in a circle, slicing a few different enemies up, back to repulsors for ranged attacks. So for us, that's what we're talking about, of saying we want to make these heroes have classic moves you may have seen elsewhere, you may have read about in some comics, all the way to original things that we've pushed and said, this could be something fun to do as this hero.
Now, speaking of comics, you know, having gear and abilities that actually affect your playstyle is one thing, but what about the cosmetics? Because I like to dress up as superheroes sometimes.
I can see it. I can see this being your thing.
It's my Ace Ventura cosplay. But no, like
surprisingly accurate.
I'm very curious how deep you're going to dig into the source material, and you know, have like little nods to kind of previous iterations.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that
Absolutely. So looking at these guys on the Golden Gate Bridge, this is more the kind of classic or iconic look, starting with something familiar, but still fresh, our own kind of lens on those. But all the stuff we've even glimpsed at, some of the things you may be seeing at the booth or at the demo you played yesterday, we have 80 years of Marvel history to dig through. And you can, if you just go back and look at how many different outfits, how many different looks, how many different styles and sets, all of that across all the different mediums, saying this would be amazing. But one of the benefits of collaborating with Marvel is they also push us for saying, what's new? What's the original thing we could do? How do we take some of these cool outfits that have been maybe referenced from the past and now push it in a certain way to say, this fits the style of these Avengers for this world? So we've got tons of source material, plus fan favorites, plus all kinds of original stuff. Like, we're not going to be short on ideas anytime soon.
And there's more customization than just the cosmetic stuff too. There's actual gear sets that have more of a gameplay functional aspect to them. Can you talk more about that? Because you gave us a bit of a dive into it, and you mentioned there are gear lines, there are perks, you can upgrade them, so there's a lot of like heavy reward system within the mission system.
Absolutely. So while in the hero mission, specifically this first one is a tutorial level, so it's not something where you're going to see much gear. It's really the heroes are who they are at this moment for this particular mission. But when you play through other hero missions and into the Warzone missions, that's where it really becomes that fun kind of loot chase, where we have all kinds of gear, different levels of rarity, from common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and a few special things past that. And all the different gear has perks. And the perks become a great way for you to customize how your actual hero plays. So the rarer the gear, the better the perks. Really, really rare gear can have multiple perks. So suddenly your Iron Man might even be the same level as mine. You might even unlock the same skills as I did, but you could have a completely different set of gear than I have. And that could actually change how you can play, how your defenses work, where you can go that I may not be able to, like all kinds of crazy stuff that can let you really go deeper into who these heroes are. And again, change your playstyle.
Now, speaking of changing playstyles, sort of the villain of this that we see is Taskmaster, who's he's wonderful at he does the what is it, photographic reflexes.
That's right.
He also made some appearances in the Insomniac Spider-Man game. Is this the same Taskmaster?
This is our world.
This is okay.
So this is the Avengers world. So for us, we look at this and say, again, we have an amazing set of heroes, we have an amazing world, but this is an original story for the Avengers. So.
Okay.
But interestingly enough, there's actually so many, because you guys revealed a lot about the story too.
Yeah.
We know who the primary villain is in AIM, and we know where all of our superheroes are. They're a little bit in this like devastation kind of a moment because
kind of
superheroes are outlawed. Yeah. And so I felt like there were a lot of themes that struck on a lot of the movies as well. I mean, Hulk not being able to turn back into Bruce Banner was definitely a theme in Thor Ragnarok. There's a lot of depression going on in Endgame. Were these things that you guys wanted to
victories? Come on,
for sure, of course, you need to have the ebb and flow, of course.
Right.
Were these themes that you guys wanted to hit on just because of the like emotional flexibility that those movies also spanned?
Oh, I like that question. Yeah, for us, again, because of the 80 years of history and looking at these heroes, they've gone through so much, and so many comics go back and look at them going to other worlds and completely different storylines and even some crazy storylines that we haven't touched, but we look at all of that, and it's just, we're fans of everything Marvel. Like, you walk around our studio, you'll find toys, you'll find people with decorations around it, you'll see people dress up for Halloween in these heroes. So for us, it's really saying, let's dig through that source material. These folks at Marvel, they know their fans and their heroes better than anyone. So being able to have that authenticity and saying, you know, that one panel, this one moment when Hulk did this thing, how do we do that in our world and take a lens that we have for the way our game plays, for the style our game is, what do we do to make that ours? But still, like you noticed, like, that seems like something we've seen somewhere else that's, you know, relevant over here, but it's still important for us to have that originality that fits into, yep, that's absolutely something that's great from the history and from whatever medium it's in inside of the Marvel universe, to be able to say, but that's the way we can pull it into our world, our way.
Are you planning on kind of visually representing that progression of what they're going through too? I mean, like, is someone going to dye their hair? Is someone going to be unshaven? Are we going to get a bro Thor too?
So the magic of having so many different, custom cosmetics and outfits is that we can actually have them be part of the story. So some you actually earn just by playing the game, so you actually will see them in different states. You got to see an image of actually what Tony looks like without his haircut and everything else. Like
A little more haggard.
How do we go from that haggard state to a little more final state to more of the iconic state? So absolutely, we're going to be able to show those character arcs visually and then let you customize them however way you want down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the demo and the gameplay of it all, because obviously this is a tutorial, so there isn't a lot of what is showing how expansive the future missions could be. Is there anything that you can speak to in terms of how the objectives might differ between hero missions versus the multiplayer Warzone missions?
Sure. So the hero missions, very much like the Golden Gate Bridge, have basically the main campaign, what's traditionally the campaign, of thinking this is the main narrative, this is that spine when it goes through. The Warzone missions have narrative as well. They all actually advance the narrative. So they have some bits of story. Some of them are very specific, like I have Black Widow, once I've unlocked her in the main campaign, now there actually might be a set of Warzone missions that are just for her, or just a story arc about Widow uncovering something from her past, or going back and getting a little more depth into her, or as Hulk, saying now that I've done the main campaign, there might be another set of missions just for Hulk that you can go off and get deeper into his storyline of what he's been doing for these 5 years between A-Day and where the game starts. So for us, it actually opens up those worlds, but then, even beyond that, what the hell is AIM doing in this world? Where are they at? How many things do they have out there that we don't know about? You have to go discover. So you can just see these regions, as we call them. Like we showed you, I think, an image of our war table map where we had the American Southwest. Those regions will keep popping up and opening all over the globe. And the idea that the missions will keep populating. The more you play, the more missions will show up and the more things to do, so you'll always have something to do. And then past that, we've talked about it yesterday, that once this game is out and we have it launched, May 2020, past that, now we start adding more regions and more heroes at no additional charge. So you'll always have more stuff, more stories, more missions to go on.
Are those going to be strictly Warzone missions, or are we getting hero missions for some of those added content?
They will be Warzone missions because we want everything to be, you can play all single player or up to 4 people at one time in co-op, but we also have very specific narrative threads that will come with them. So there will be stories and all of it, and that's our secret sauce. Like one of the things we have beyond just great characters and all that depth is the ability to have so much story in so many individual stories as well as the group stories.
And you mentioned that there's the level scaling as well, so you don't have to worry about getting too OP for certain missions.
That's
or
right.
Being outranked by a friend and whatnot.
Even the dynamic scaling, just saying how many of us are playing at what power levels and figuring that out, but also letting you choose, even per mission, the difficulty you want. If I want a more casual playthrough today, or if I want to go kind of down and dirty and more hardcore, we want to let players have the kind of fun and experience they want every time they play.
Now, aside from characters that we've seen in the trailer, who would you put in the game? Like personally, I know you.
They're in the game. Thanks.
Those are your
Aside
favorites?
from them, what's the B sides, the D-listers? Is there anybody you personally?
No. I'm not going to rank the Marvel heroes. So from our side, I will tell you this: that I will put all of them in the game if I can. That honestly, we've gone through this list of heroes, and there's hundreds of them.
What a diplomatic answer.
At the end of the day, there
That's
are
a lot of
so
work
many.
for you. You've just committed yourself to all of them.
Think of the amount of fun that would be to have all of them at this quality in this kind of game to be able to explore those stories together. Absolutely, I would do that.
Oh
Yeah.
man. What about Hawkeye? Like, where's Hawkeye? Like,
Where is Hawkeye?
You go in the YouTube comments and everyone's just like roasting Hawkeye in there. It's rough.
They
feel bad
love
for the
and
guy.
hate him, love to hate him. I'm not sure which one it is.
Well, he's around there somewhere. I know. Okay, so I want to ask you this. There's one thing I know a lot of people are concerned about. There's the fear that this is games as a service, and obviously it's pulling from Avengers, which is rooted primarily in stories. Like reading a comic is a narrative single-player experience, so to speak.
For sure.
Can you say anything to sort of alleviate those concerns that people have had?
I can say that we have a world that's designed of stories of heroes that are beloved, that already exist. You don't have to figure out what is this world. You know this world. You know these heroes. You want to figure out what they're doing next and what big threats are coming. The whole point of us saying we're not no additional cost for new regions, new stories, new heroes, to say, no, we want you to come in and absolutely be part of this world. We have the widest funnel possible, saying everybody will get all the heroes. Everybody will have all the regions to play. For us, it's saying this is this gigantic world, and yeah, you have a ton of costumes and outfits you can earn, and there is a marketplace where you can go buy specific costumes that are only available that way. But for us, that lets you choose how much you want to invest into it or not. But we see it as not a service as much as this world that you get to be part of, and will keep growing for years to come.
And you guys have plenty more left to say on the game. I know I had about 1,000 questions for you yesterday.
Sorry, I couldn't answer them.
It's fine. What's next on the agenda for you guys? Next reveals, next conversations?
So our PR guys can give you the specific details, I'm sure, but let's put it this way. There's almost a show every month for the rest of the year and into next year, and we have so many things that we want to talk about. But there are things, certainly early next year, we're going to talk about co-op. There's a ton of stuff we want to talk about matchmaking and how you get together and play with your friends and what does it mean. That'll be a big deal. We want to go deeper into AIM. We've only scratched the surface on who the bad guys are right now. We want to get into what's the motivation, what's behind, what's really happening around the globe. So we have a couple big things ahead of us that I can't wait to show you guys.
Awesome.
Dying to hear more. Thank you so much for coming by and chatting.
My pleasure.
We have tons more coming out of Gamescom right here on IGN, so stick around. We'll be right back.